We are live on Facebook. Dustin is getting the presentation pulled up. Jeff, we are ready to go. If you want to unmute the panelists.
You actually have the wheel right now. Underneath your list of participants, you'll be able to, there's a unmute all if you wanted to hit that. Do you want me to reclaim for a second? And
I think you still have control. Oh, you did not. Okay. We are ready. We have John Puryear, Drew Schreiner, Jeannie Gregory, Jimmy Moore. You are all unmuted.
You said we're all ready? All right. The meeting of the Gallatin Municipal Board of Zoning Appeals will come to order. I have a thing here. I want to read it first. Pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order number 16 and to the need limit the community spread of the COVID-19, members of the Planning Commission will participate by electronic means, and the meeting will be live streamed to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the members and the citizens of Gallatin. All right. First thing be to call. We've been called to order, so if you'll stand, we'll have the invocation.
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
We have to do a roll call vote to of all the members of the BZA to agree to do a electronic meeting. So I can start the roll call vote with.
Speaker's not working. What did he say?
He said we have to do a roll call to agree to do the electronic.
Okay, we don't have a roll call. Who's going to call it? Me or?
I can take care of that.
Okay.
Mr. Puryear?
Yes.
Mr. Schreiner?
Present.
I need a yes or no vote.
Yes.
Ms. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Moore, you have a quorum.
Okay, we're ready for the invocation now?
Yes, please.
All right. Bow your head, you'll have a Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings you give us each day. be with us tonight, Father, and whatever decisions we make will be the ones the Lord will glorify you. Help us to do right in whatever we do. Go with us now, forgive us of all of our sins, and may we always give you the praise, the honor, and the glory for it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, Drew, you lead the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I guess we done had the roll call. So we'll get right into the minutes of the last meeting. If all of you had time to look over those, is there anything wrong with them? If you do now, if not, I'll take a motion to adopt them from the last meeting.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Motion been approved. Here, second. I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so it carried from the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this is Bill McCord. I don't think there was actual approval of the roll call. I think it was an approval of allowing to conduct a meeting remotely. So you would want to go back and actually do the roll call and take that essentially that same type of vote again for the roll call itself.
I'm having troubles. My speaker is not, I'm not hearing. I don't know whether you can hear me good or not, but my speakers, my thing here is not working.
Well, yes, I can hear you fine now. Occasionally you do have an echo to you though, but that last transmission, you were clear.
Okay.
So we just need to do the roll call formally.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? This is Latasha Alexander.
Here.
Just make sure every vote is a roll call vote. You have to ask each member to vote by roll call.
If we all mute, I think what's happening is our sound is echoing. So unless you're talking, mute it.
Okay, can do.
Okay. You ready for roll call?
Yes, Josh, would you do the roll call vote and then have each person respond? Perhaps Josh maybe stepped away from his desk. I'll be glad to do that activity. This is a roll call for the MBZA meeting of April the 23rd, 2020. Mr. Pereira?
Here.
Ms. Gregory?
Here.
Mr. Schreiner?
Here.
And Mr. Moore?
Here.
Okay, we have 4 members present. We may proceed with the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
All righty. The first thing tonight, resolution number 2020-004, the owner and applicant request a variance of 9,477.1 square feet from the minimum development area per dwelling unit per section 0605-030-B of the Gallatin zoning ordinance to qualify the lot for consideration to allow 2 dwellings units on a 13,022.9 square foot, 0.29 acres lot, tax map 135D, Group B, parcel 040-04, zone R15 medium density residential located at 1137 Langwood Drive. Who will be representing this tonight?
This is Dustin Shane, Gallatin Planning Department. As you can see, the lot in question is on Langwood Drive, south of Coles Ferry Road. What the applicant's proposing is a duplex, 2,200 square foot duplex on a lot that is only 13,022.9 square feet. Now the R15 zone district requires a minimum lot area of 15,000 square feet just for a single family home. For a duplex, you need even more than that. You need 22,500 square feet. You'll see I've circled there that each dwelling unit requires 11,250 square feet. Now the applicant, this Highland Park subdivision that was originally platted, basically none of the lots would meet this larger requirement of 22,500 square feet for a duplex. Most of them are around 16,000 square feet. Now to the southwest, the area in red, there are quite a few duplexes. That is a separate subdivision, but a close distance to the site. Most of the duplexes down there are on lots that are 20,000 square feet, so they do not also meet this 22,500 square feet minimum. And then just about 400 feet to the west, you have a duplex on a 14,000 square foot lot, which is the closest analog to what we have here. So basically, the applicant is arguing that it's a strict application of the R15 standards is not practical for this neighborhood, judging by the surroundings. So they would ask for a variance of about 9,000 square feet to allow to have two dwelling units on this 13,000 square foot lot. And we do recommend denial based on it not meeting these minimum bulk regulations of our zoning ordinance. Thank you.
All right, I'm not sure, is anyone online, going to be online tonight to, for resolution number 2020-04 to talk about it?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I've unmuted Andy Leith and the applicant, John Park.
Okay, all righty. You want to come up, when you come on, state your name, please, and then, and we'll get into what you want to say.
Mr. Jimmy, this is Andy Leith. And I guess, John, you're on here as well?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe a little difficult since we're not face to face. So, John, if you need to jump in here, I'll start, and then you can add to, take away, whatever you need to do. But as Dustin stated, essentially our argument is we just feel like that we can put a nice product here on this lot with a duplex. Currently, it's a non-conforming lot, even at R15. So even a single family residence would not be conforming to the zoning ordinance. And, as such, we're asking that we feel like we can put a nicer looking product there with a duplex. I've looked through the zoning ordinance, the criteria for requesting a variance, and without going through each one of them individually, unless you want me to, I feel like the only one really in question would be item A of the zoning ordinance, which is the one where you really have to provide a hardship. And I would argue that it's kind of hard for this one to be applicable to requesting a lot size variance, especially a lot that's already non-conforming. And at the end of the day, we feel like that the duplex here would actually improve the area property values just because of the product that we could build as opposed to having to build a single family residential lot. And John, you feel free to jump in here and add anything to that I've left out for you.
Right. Well, of course, I know everybody except Ms. Gregory was at the last meeting when we went over all this stuff. So I think everybody's pretty familiar with it. One of my biggest gripes about this, Ms. Gregory, was that I went and sat down with Bill and all the heads of the office at the city hall before I bought this lot and talked to them about building a duplex on this lot and kind of just covering my bases before I bought it, because I knew I was having to give a little more for this lot. And I'm okay with that, building a duplex as a rental piece of property. I wasn't okay with it to build a single family dwelling that I'm gonna have to sell, because the lot cost just won't work for that in that neighborhood. So I sat down with them. We met for probably 30, 45 minutes. Everybody said everything looks good. So I went on and purchased property, then turned it in, and then get this kickback. You know, I went through the neighborhood. There's like 100 and I forget exactly what it was. It was 140 houses in there. There was 38 or 39 duplexes, and there's actually also a quadplex in that neighborhood. So, you know, I don't feel like I'm doing anything outside of the norm in that neighborhood. And, you know, everybody that's seen the product I've put out, like at, you know, our triplexes, there on Andy, what's the street there? I can't even think of the road now.
Cotton Street.
Cotton Street. You know, we put out a really great product with 2 triplexes there. You know, so I'm just, you know, like I said, my biggest gripe is just the fact that I went and sat down with the city before I ever purchased this lot, just trying to cover my bases, and everybody said everything looked good. And then when I went to turn the paperwork in and all this, I get this kickback saying I can't build it because of this rule. And as far as this rule goes, I mean, I could argue this rule for days. Whoever implemented this 20,000 square foot of lot, to me, it's a very, very bad rule. You know, it shouldn't apply across the city of Gallatin. You know, lots are getting harder and harder to find in this town, and to find half acre to acre lots is even harder. So, you know, like I said, that's kind of my argument for the day. And I feel like with the duplex that I can put in there, I can put a nice product that's, you know, with some affordable living. And if I have to go in there and build a single family dwelling home, it's just going to be to sell. And I'm going to have to put out the cheapest product I can put in there to be able to do it, to come out on this lot and to be able to come out on the sell, you know, the price point of selling in that neighborhood. And that's it.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Yes.
Is anyone online that would like to speak? Anyone online would like to speak either for or against it?
Mr. Chairman, I have, if the last 3 of your phone number is 167, you've been unmuted. Last 3, 796, you've been unmuted. Okay, Mr. Chairman, we did receive 1 email from Shannon Svoboda. There should be a printout.
There's a printout on everybody's desk, I think.
On your desk, and it was
Yeah.
also sent via email to all of the participants. She is located directly behind the proposed lot.
Is that all you have?
She is, well, Ms. Svoboda is against both the variance and the conditional use permit items, both items number 1 and number 2, in order to preserve the neighborhood character.
Okay. All right, is anyone else? Last call, anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public then if there's no one else. The board here, do you have any questions? Either one of anybody here or online? John, anybody have a question or a comment you'd like to make? Now's the time to do it.
Do you have any pictures or renderings of what you're planning, John?
Ms. Gregory, I believe we should have something on file. We'll see if we can get it pulled up here on the screen in a second.
We did have some. I don't know, wasn't none in this package.
Well, at the last meeting, we asked for architectural renderings to see what it would look like.
Okay.
I'm not aware of a submittal. This is Dustin.
Hey, John. Hey, this is Drew Schreiner. Do you mind just elaborate, 30, 45 seconds or such, just about what you intend for the duplex to look like versus a single family dwelling in terms of aesthetics?
Well, as far as the duplex go, I mean, I'm looking at doing a full brick, or at least 3 sides brick. Of course, the lot to the right of it is I was over there the other day mowing. The house to the right of it is 100% siding. The house to the left is brick. So I don't know if y'all have seen the Cotton Street. They're fully bricked, dimensional shingles. I mean, they're a good looking product. And that's kind of, because this is a long, as far as this duplex goes, this is a long-term commitment for me on the duplex. I plan on keeping it. I can't build a single family dwelling over there and rent it. I mean, it just doesn't work. And, as far as trying to build one to sell, I mean, yeah, if I just build a house, it's going to be it's going to probably be 100% siding, and just like the one next to it. I know the neighbor behind has, I guess, sent an email. I did not see that email. Of course, that's on Woodville. And to say it's going to bring down the integrity of the neighborhood, I don't understand that, because there's 40 other duplexes in this neighborhood. Like I said, everything, we build, or I build, I try to build to a higher standard. And, my plans are to do a full brick, dimensional shingle. I mean, we do we put hardwood floors, granite countertops inside, which I know the inside doesn't really pertain, but, that's basically what we do.
That's what I was asking about. Thank you, John.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes. Is that John? Is that you? Okay.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, go ahead.
I know Mr. Park would build a good product. I'm sorry this won't be very popular, but we're supposed to, in order to grant a variance, it has to meet all of those 10 conditions, A through J. And everything that was said about it, financially, it doesn't make sense to build a house on there. It says on D, is financial return was not considered in the basis for granting this variance. I don't think we can consider the financial ramifications of whether the lot, it makes sense to build a single family or duplex. And I'm sorry, Mr. Park, I know it's not popular with you, but we're not allowed to grant a variance unless we can satisfy all 10 of those conditions. The other one was that it says the granting of the variance is the minimum variance necessary to make possible the reasonable placement of a structure and use. Well, the minimum variance necessary would be a single family dwelling. So if I'm going to follow the rules, I have to decline the request, but that's just my opinion. There's 4 people here. I'll stop talking there. Thank you.
I know you're right, John, and what you're saying. Of course, we've done things before. What about all those other duplexes down below him there? I mean, was they considered like this? I mean, there's a lot of things I think you have to consider in this thing. And John has whatever way you feel, that it doesn't make any difference, but he's promised to build an outstanding looking place there if it is a duplex. And I think he will. I think I've known him long enough to know that. So, it's just I just bringing that out. I know if you go strictly by the rules, but do we go by the rules strictly 100%? No, I don't think so. I've been here 30 years, and I think we've done some things other than that. So, I'm not saying I'm voting either way, but I'm just saying you need to consider some of those things before you vote. And anyone else have a comment, that's fine.
Hey, this is Latisha Alexander. Can you hear me? Staff attorney?
Yes.
Whichever way you're inclined to vote, whoever makes the motion, if you're inclined to vote in favor, make a motion in favor of this variance, you have to put on the record how it supports those 10 items under our ordinance. It can't be just because we've not followed the law before or anything like that. We need to have something on the record specifically as to why you believe the variance should be granted according to our ordinance or our zoning code.
Okay, are you saying that if we don't do that, then we're wrong? Or is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. I'm saying in order to grant this variance, you do have to put on the record specific reasonings in support of our code as to why you're going to grant it.
Okay. You're not saying, you know, somebody might think you're saying you're going to jail if you don't vote right, but that's not what you're saying.
I'm saying as the staff attorney for the city,
Yes, ma'am.
I am always going to advise any governing body to follow our code.
Right, and I appreciate that. Anyone else need to have anything to say? Anyone else? I'm getting ready to take a motion if there's no one else has anything to say. Okay, I'm ready to entertain a motion from someone.
Hello?
Yes.
Jimmy, I just wanted to say one thing that it had me muted for some reason, but they keep saying the going by the codes of the city. Well, if that's the fact, just like Andy stated earlier, the code also says that you got to have 15,000 square foot of building lot to build a single family dwelling, which this doesn't meet. So if they don't, you know, and I'm not saying if they don't approve the duplex or whatever, you know, they're still going to let me build a single family dwelling, and that's breaking the code also.
Okay, John.
Mr. Moore
Yes, sir.
and the board, people are entitled to build on their properties. This is a non-conforming lot, and you're entitled to be able to build on a non-conforming lot. In this case, if a duplex is granted, that would almost double the density, and that would, you know, they supposedly could build on a non-conforming lot, but this will double the density on that particular lot. So we can't deny somebody from building a home on a non-conforming lot if it's a lot of record, but that doesn't grant them automatic ability to be able to build 2 units on there simply because of conditional use, which has specific design standards for a certain size lot. It doesn't carte blanche give them that ability to do that. So there are many lots in town, they're all over town, that were platted many years ago that no longer comply with the minimum lot size that people are entitled to build a home on it. They do have to comply with the setbacks unless they are able to obtain a variance, but they can build a home on it.
Okay, Bill, let me ask you one more question. Some of these other ones here that's been built are duplexes. Do they have enough acreage with them, or are they short? I know it's a different year, but are they way under short on acreage or not?
The one with the black star,
Uh-huh.
I can't speak to that one. Dustin had mentioned that the other lots that are shown there is Buffalo Valley. I don't think that's actually the subdivision, but on Meadowview and Edgewood Drive, which are shown on the map that you have on your screen in kind of a pink or reddish colored shading.
Mm-hmm.
Those are different platted subdivisions. And I think Dustin said those lots were generally are close to 20,000 square feet, which even for duplex under our code now is not compliant with code. What I think happened here is that the code changed back some years ago and changed the density qualification. So those that have duplexes on them in those other subdivisions around the corner may have been compliant at the time that they were built, but no longer are compliant.
Okay.
So you have a lot of non-conforming I assume that most of those lots are less than 22,500 square feet, and they didn't have to get a conditional use at that time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cord.
Chair Moore, and this is LaTisha Alexander, staff attorney again. If I
Yes,
may make one more comment.
yes, ma'am.
Under section 15-05-040 of our zoning code, it specifically states that nonconformity does not constitute grounds for granting of a variance. So I just want to make this body aware of that as well.
Read that one more time, please.
It's section 15-05-040, and it says nonconformity does not constitute grounds for granting of a variance. So part of the issues that have been stated by Mr. Park and throughout this conversation is that the land is non-conforming. There's other non-conforming properties in that area, but that is not specifically stated in our code a reason to grant a variance.
All righty, thank you.
And let me also mention, if you wanted to entertain both a variance and then the follow-up item, which is tied to this one, sort of, the conditional use, would be creating a greater inconsistency or nonconformity than what our code calls for right now. So it'd be exacerbating the problem, I guess you could call it that.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yeah, who's this?
This is John.
John? Okay, John, go ahead.
Yes, I'll make a motion to deny the variance on the basis that it does not meet the 10 conditions required in order to grant a variance.
Okay, John has made a motion to not do the variance and all. Is there anyone who will second it?
I'll second it to get conversation.
Okay, I have a second. Any conversation about this? Anyone else want to speak? Before we take a vote. All righty, I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, we have to do a roll call vote of all items. So I'm
Okay.
going to start with Mr. Puryear,
Okay,
Aye.
Mr. Shriner,
No.
Ms. Gregory,
No.
Mr. Moore,
no.
that is 3 noes and 1 aye.
Okay, that motion failed. So you need to address someone may want to make another motion to either approve, I suppose, is an option, to approve a resolution.
Okay, ready to entertain another motion. Now, the attorney, did you say that one makes, if someone made a motion now to do this, they have to go back to this particular verse you was talking about? Is that correct?
This is LaTisha Alexander, staff attorney, and that is correct because in order for us to grant a variance, we have to put on the record how it meets the code. So whoever makes this motion needs to be very specific so that should this end up in litigation, I will be able to argue as to why this was a legal variance granted.
All right. We need to get a motion now, or do we need to think about this and come back with a specific thing, or are you ready now to make a motion to include that in there, or whatever you're ready to do? I'll entertain a motion now to do whatever.
I mean, I think with it being a non-conforming lot, I think they make a case to get a variance. And I think they meet that criteria. So
You making a motion to what, John, Drew?
what does that mean? I would make a motion to approve a conditional use permit. Is that the way I need to word it? And am I giving the city attorney enough to go off of, that it's just my opinion that I think there is a criteria met to get a variance? So since I'm specifically stating that, does that provide the city with enough grounds in the event that it were to go to litigation?
Mr. Shriner, this is Latisha Alexander again, staff attorney.
Yes, ma'am.
So under 15-05, the Board of Zoning Appeals may grant variances where it makes findings of fact based upon the standards prescribed in this section. So Mr. Pereira has already stated that there are 10 standards that have to be met in order for this body to grant a variance. So, and I've already stated that nonconformity is not a basis for a variance based on our code. So that may be your finding of fact, but I could not argue that legally because that is not what our code says.
But if Mr. Puryear's opinion is that all 10 of those are not met, and if it's my opinion that all 10 of those do apply, is that just a difference of opinions between me and Mr. Puryear?
Yes, but all you have to do is on the record say how you would apply those 10 factors to this case.
So I would need to specifically go through all 10?
Correct.
Okay. I would need a packet. I don't have one in front of me, but
Do you mind if I jump in here, Mr. Moore? This is Andy Leith.
Go ahead, Andy. Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I went through these 10 criteria earlier today, preparing for the meeting. And if you don't mind, I will go through those 10 now.
That'll be good.
And explain how I feel like that we're addressing them.
Okay.
And the big elephant in the room is going to be item A. So if you don't mind, I'll just leave that one for the last, and I'll start with probably what's going to be the easier ones first.
Okay.
So item J states the granting of a variance will not cause substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impact the intent and purpose of the city zoning plan and zoning ordinance. So I feel like that we are not going to cause a substantial detriment to the public good by having a duplex as opposed to a single family residential. And the intent and purpose of the zoning plan and zoning ordinance is to allow duplexes in R15. So we again have a use that's applicable, that's allowable in the zone. And therefore I feel like item J is we're meeting that criteria.
Okay.
Item I states the proposed variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase the congestion in public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger the public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values within the area. Again, we do not feel that a duplex on this particular lot is going to impair light or air supply to adjacent properties, nor do we feel like adding 2 units in an established subdivision will add to congestion of public streets or endanger the public safety in any way. And as a side note, I feel like that the duplex product that we are proposing will actually improve property values in the area. So again, meeting item I. Item H states the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area which property is located. And again, a duplex structure on this particular lot will not harm the public welfare in any way, shape, form, or fashion. The variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. That's item G. We are asking for the minimum variance required for a duplex, which is the 9,000 plus or minus square feet. Not asking for more than that. Item F, the granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. John's not getting any special privilege that anybody else couldn't ask for if they so choose to do so for this body. Item E, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. After the effective date of the ordinance, this subdivision was approved back in 1955, so I doubt that anything was done that would not satisfy that requirement to be met there. Financial returns only shall not be considered as a basis of granting this variance. And I know John spoke about the financial returns. You'll note that I did not, as his representative, bring that point up. However, I would state that the immediate community, I feel like, would benefit from this duplex as opposed to the single family residence, which would be built. So John's financial concerns aside, we feel like that the immediate area would be improved and property values would increase with the duplex development. Item C, the variance will not authorize activities in the zone districts other than those permitted by the ordinance. Again, the duplex is a permitted use in the R15, so we're not asking for anything that's not allowable in the zone. Item B, the conditions upon which the petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Most of the properties within this area are developed already. So we don't feel like you guys are going to have a lot of petitions for this same request in this area, just because this is one of the last remaining vacant lots there. And item A, the particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from mere inconvenience if the strict application of this ordinance were carried out must be stated. And, I would state that I've been doing this for a long time. In zoning variances, the way zoning ordinances are written, just to be honest with you guys, I feel like anybody can make an argument one way or the other, either for or against zoning variances, just to the simple fact of the way the zoning variances are written. And it's part of my job to convince you all that the 10 conditions are met. In this particular case, using the definition of item A, the shape of the lot is what's causing us to not be able to do what we would like to do, which is why we're in front of you asking for a variance of the 9,000 square feet so that we can build the duplex. There is some topographic hardships in the rear, as stated by engineering in previous meetings, that they would like to come through there and improve that drainage channel, which allowing this duplex development, the owner's more than willing to let the city come in there and do what they need to do in the rear to improve the drainage. So that's going through the 10 things there with how I feel like that we're accomplishing meeting all 10 items A through J. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be here to answer them.
Thank you, Andy. Anyone else? I guess we're back to the motion again. Do I hear a motion for this?
Now that those 10 have been A through J have been stated, I mean that was my initial thought 2 months ago when I first heard all this. So rather than regurgitating everything that the civil engineering firm had just said, I would just go on record to say I agree with those interpretations. And therefore I would simply entertain a motion to approve the conditional use permit and the variance requested by the applicant.
Okay, the motion's been made.
So this is Latisha Alexander again, staff attorney. Mr. Shriner, if you could submit that motion as a motion to approve adopting what the applicant's representative said regarding the findings of fact on the variance standards.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, my computer screen's up here and the speaker's about 4 feet away, so I'm just trying to hear. Can you repeat that one more time just so I can make sure that I word that properly? Sorry to ask you again.
If you're going to make the motion to approve, then make the motion to approve the resolution adopting the findings of facts presented by the applicant's representative for a variance.
Okay. So I would make a motion to approve adopting the adopting the interpretations of the applicant's representative. Am I wording that properly?
That'll work.
Okay.
Okay. Motion made. Do I have a
Second.
I got a
Second.
second. Any other question? Any other question before we vote?
Mr. Chair, I won't beat a dead horse. I'll just say that, I'll just kind of go on the record that as I listen to all of those 10 conditions, I differ in opinion from Mr. Leith. I find that 6 of the 10 conditions, it failed to meet 6 of the 10 conditions. And I know that in order to grant the variance, we have to meet all 10 of the 10 conditions. Probably the one that stood out to me the most is G, and that's variance is the minimum variance necessary to make possible the reasonable placement of the structure and use. And minimum variance necessary would be a single-family dwelling. It is a non-conforming lot. But anyhow, I've made my points, so y'all know how I feel on it. I'll stop and let y'all vote.
Are you saying, John, that Mr. Leith, the representative, has misinformed him? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a difference of, am I still muted? No, it's just a difference of opinion.
Different opinion, okay.
Mr. Puryear, I didn't hear it earlier. It's just hard to hear on my screen. Would you mind telling me which one?
Oh, well, the ones I feel like it fails to satisfy are A, B, D, G, H, and J.
Okay.
I don't think y'all want me to read those long.
No, I couldn't hear it, Mr. Puryear. Because I want to be able to read through that, so I just couldn't hear the first time. Thank you.
Anyone else? We're fixing to vote. All right, will you have the roll call on this, please?
Mr. Puryear,
No.
Mr. Shriner,
Yes.
Ms. Gregory,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
So that is 3 yes votes, 1 no vote.
All righty, we need to grant the variance then, is that correct? Is that correct, Josh?
The item has been approved.
Yes, okay, the item has been approved. Let's go to number 2. GMA's resolution number 2030-003. 1137 Langwood Drive, conditional use permit, Green Lid Design LLC. The owner and applicant request approval of a conditional use permit for 1137 Langwood Drive, Lot 10, Highland Park, Number 2 subdivision, to permit a multifamily residential two-family dwelling development per section 0605020-C of the Gallatin ordinance on 0.029 acres lot, tax map 135D, Group B, partial 040-00, zone R15, medium density residential, located same place, 1137 Langwood Drive.
This is Dustin Shane, Gallatin Planning.
Yes, sir.
Can I get the next slide? Whoever's controlling it.
Get the next one.
Let's see. Okay, it must have been me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've already gone over the variance and the particulars. So there's just 4 standards for the conditional use permit. Will the public health, safety, and welfare be protected? We would judge that they would by this conditional use permit. Will it adversely affect other property with regard to our performance standards or property values? We would say it wouldn't. Is it an allowed conditional use? It is. And then does it conform to the provision for said district? The planning department's position was that it did not, but in light of the granted variance, it would also meet condition 4 per the board's opinion. So our position was to deny it, but the board can deliberate on that. Thank you.
Your opinion of the first and when we've done voted, your opinion's not going to change. Is that correct?
What was that?
Okay, we've been through the first one and we approved it, the variance. So the second one, are you still denying it and you're not going to change since we voted to accept the first one? Is that correct?
Well, I mean, that was our stated position. The reason though was because of the bulk regulations, but as the previous item, the decision was made that it did meet the bulk regulations. So in the light of that, there wouldn't be any other reason we would see to deny it. But that was, I'm just stating our original position that we had.
All right. Okay.
So.
All right. Anyone else in the audience would like to address this? Anyone else in the audience would like to address this?
John Park and Andy Leith, you've been unmuted.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone else want to address this in the audience? Last call.
Mr. Moore, I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have on behalf of John. This is Andy Leith with Greenlid. We feel like that with the granting of the variance that all the other provisions of the conditional use are met.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment? Not, I'm fixing to take it to a vote. Does the board have any question? You okay, Drew? All those in favor of item number 2 will say aye.
Mr.
I
Moore,
guess we better have a roll call. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll have a roll call. I'm sorry.
Mr. Puryear,
I have to vote no on the basis it would be inconsistent to vote yes because I didn't agree with the bulk regulation. So no.
Can I interject real quick? Who made the motion and who seconded it to approve the resolution?
Drew made the motion and Ms. Gregory seconded it.
The conditional use resolution?
Yes, so the previous one, I guess I made the initial motion to
All right,
grant.
let's do it again. Okay, Drew, you make the motion again, Drew.
So I'll make the motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Now do your roll call.
Roll call again. Okay. All right. I can't think of roll call.
Mr. Puryear,
No.
Mr. Schreiner,
Yes.
Ms. Gregory,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes,
Mr. Moore, you have a 3-1 vote.
thank you. Resolution, the variance cleared on the number 2. Thank you very much. Let's go to the next one. GMAZ resolution number 2020-05, 1194 Blackshear Drive, variance, Vivian Huntsman. The owner and applicant request a variance of a 2 foot from the maximum height for a fence in the rear yard per section 1201-020-C5 to allow an 8 foot tall fence in a rear yard and a variance in the unfinished side to face outward per section 1201-020-C-3 to allow a fence with the finished side facing inward on 2.2 acre lot, tax map 125, group B, parcel 011-00, zoned R40, low density residential district, located at 1194 Blackshear Drive. Who on the staff would like to go do this, please? Can you hear me, staff?
Jennifer, are you there?
Josh,
Yes, Mr. Moore.
we're waiting for some of the staff to give their comment on the,
We are. The
Okay.
staff presenting is Jennifer Dunbar. She's our zoning administrator with the city of Gallatin.
all right.
This is her first BZA meeting, so she's very excited about presenting this item. So excited that she can't find the unmute button on her phone.
She's real excited, didn't she?
I believe Dustin just went to go check to make sure she's still here.
You mean she's left the building?
I hope not.
I know you don't have your report though. You have a written,
I see her coming, I believe. No, she went back again.
you're on now.
All right.
You're looking into the camera a little bit.
He said you went home. You didn't go home, did you?
I did not go home. Sorry about the
Okay,
confusion.
I'm sorry.
I couldn't get my audio.
Go ahead and give your report, please.
Alrighty. This is in reference to the variance request for the fence at 1194 Blackshear Drive. This started as an anonymous zoning complaint that we received in our office that informed us that the fence that was constructed on this property was too tall in height, and it was actually facing the wrong way. The way it was constructed was the finished side was facing the residence, whereas by our regulations, it's supposed to be facing the other way. A zoning letter was sent to the applicant and owner, Miss Vivian Huntsman, and she did comply with our letter. And she stopped construction on the fence when she realized that there was a zoning violation. She called our office and explained to us that she did not realize that she needed a permit to put the fence up. And nobody had told her this, and she didn't realize that she had violated the height rule or the placement because it was technically backwards. She had already invested over $15,000 into this fence. And she wanted an alternative to see what she could do to keep the fence. And the reason for her height, that she had made it this tall, she explained, was that one of the properties behind her is a commercial property, and that property is Jean Carmen Realty. She explained to me that she wanted a barrier between her residence and that commercial property that would provide a barrier from light, noise, nuisance, and just protect her residents. So she did turn in a application for a variance to our department, and the proper notices were sent out to her neighbors, and we did receive a few letters. One of her neighbors, Glenda Adcock, was in support of her. And then we also received a few other letters. We're going to move through the slideshow to show the property so you can get a visual of what this fence looks like. This spans, she has a very large lot. It's 2.2 acres. She only is going to construct just a barrier along the rear of the property.
You said this is behind it is Jean Carmen Real Estate, is that correct?
That's correct. She also had a correspondence, an email from Jean Carmen that she can speak to, that they did not mind the fence being here. This picture right here will show you that the support beams are still up. The construction was stopped. She did do what she was supposed to do in that aspect. But the way that our regulations are, that side of the fence is supposed to be facing her property. And of course, it is too tall. It's supposed to be 6 feet tall because it is on her property line. And as a residence, she can only have a maximum height of 6 feet. This is Jean Carmen Realty. This is one of the properties that's directly behind her that she was wanting to get some barrier from. This property right here at 1199, that is a residence. And we did receive a letter from the resident not in support of the fence. And that is also in the slideshow. The position of the planning department is to recommend denial of the variance request due to the fact that the fence.
Can you go back to that letter while you're talking? Okay, thank you.
The fence does not meet the height requirement, and it's also positioned in the wrong way.
You made a comment just a few minutes ago about Mr. Carmen didn't have no objection to it, and you had several other letters. That was what you said. Can you tell us?
Yes.
You tell us how many of those letters was for or against?
We had Kathy Carmen Andrews from Jean Carmen Realty. She did write a letter, or she wrote an email correspondence to Ms. Huntsman she did not mind that the fence was there. It didn't bother her. She didn't request they take it down. We also had another neighbor named Glenda Adcock. That is a neighbor of Ms. Huntsman that spoke in support of her. She doesn't have the technology she feels like calling and participate. But she did call our office and make it noted that she was in support. Miss Wes and Shannon Reed submitted this letter right here, that they were disappointed in the fence. They're not requesting necessarily that she remove it, but they were not in support of it. And the other letter, if you'll go to the other attachment, from Miss Kathy Wright, she is against the fence, and she is there on the corner of Lakeshore and Nashville Pike. So she is directly in front of Miss Huntsman.
Can I ask you a question? I've got a question about these letters. If you go back to the previous letter, the gentleman states that the fences near the banks, if you think where Bank of America and Fifth Third banks are, I'm looking at this as similar logistical placement, you've got a residential home that abuts a commercial property. So assuming that it looks like his name is Mr. Reed, assuming Mr. Reed is correct and Bank of America does in fact have a fence that is taller than 6 feet, and I do think he's right on that little cut through, that is a pretty tall fence. What is the difference between that fence that separates commercial and residential that's over 6 feet versus this lady's? What is the key difference there?
The key difference is the placement. It's put on their property line, which is considered commercial. Her fence is just a few feet in. I want to say the offset's less than 5 feet. She did put it on her property line, which makes it a residential fence.
Okay.
And the 2 lots that are in front of her are residential, whereas the one right in the middle, which is Jean Carmen, is commercial. So that would be the difference.
And there's several commercial places down through there now. Am I right about that?
There's some offices. It's a zoned MRO.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is John Preer. May I speak?
Yes, John, go ahead.
All the way down that corridor where there is commercial abutting residential, we have required the developers to do an 8-foot opaque barrier. In most cases, the residences have requested a brick wall. In some cases, we've allowed them to do fences. It's been a little inconsistent. But the consistency of the opaque barrier has been 8 foot all the way down that line. So I can almost understand why the lady would think that that's what I'm supposed to put.
Yeah.
Way up to there. Now, the difference is this is just a couple of feet onto her property, which classifies it as a residential fence. Had it been 2 feet the other direction, it would have been consistently an 8-foot fence. The issue that she's placed it with the pretty side facing her, that does violate condition 3 of section C. So I would just suggest that before we made somebody tear a fence down or completely change it, maybe put the condition on there that allows her to turn that into a shadow box fence, which is a double-sided fence. I don't know if that can be done, but that might appeal to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, John. I really do. I think you could make the other side just as you could. That side.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and that's not that much cost. Those cedar fence pickets, I just built one. I mean, they're $2.68 a piece. But either way, I agree with Mr. Preer. I think it's a good idea. And it would directly address the concerns of the neighbors. It looks like in Mr. Reed's letter, he's complaining about the aesthetics of it, but
That'd take care of it, wouldn't it?
I believe so.
Is there any way I could say something, please?
Who's speaking?
Kathy Wright. I live at 1199 Nashville Pike.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
looking.
Ms.
Yeah,
Wright,
right.
the public comment period will be open by
Hold it, yeah, okay.
Mr. Moore in just a
Sorry.
few minutes.
Just in a few minutes.
So just to remind the members of the BZA, there's 2 items at hand. One is the height of the fence, which is 6 feet, which is currently 8 feet versus the 6 feet because it's on a residential property, and also the facing of the fence being basically the pretty side faces her, the ugly side faces the neighbor, where our ordinance requires the opposite.
Our ordinance calls for 6 foot.
On a residential property, it would have to be 6 foot.
But what John just commented a while ago, though, if they were to finish the other side of that fence, do you think 2 foot would still need to be taken down, or what? I don't know.
Staff is contending that the fence is on a residential property, even if it's just 2 feet from the line. So it's 2 feet into the residential property. So therefore, it would be a maximum of a 6 foot fence.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
It's Bill McCord. I also
Yes,
want to, if the board is inclined to maybe approve an 8-foot tall fence, that fence will have to be approved by an engineer and approved with a permit through the building department in addition. So there's some complexities. It's not just as easy as putting another post up and or stringers, and then creating another side to that fence. It'll have to be engineered. As you see in some of the photographs, there are essentially some braces that are put up there, and that's probably not going to be able to do it. So, you know, again, we're back to this is a variance. We're back to the hardship. It's not a preference or what we can live with. It's a hardship. So I want you to focus on that issue and not on something that you would get along with. Yes, an 8-foot fence could be, or wall could be built on the adjacent property if it is zoned for that purpose. Again, 2 of the lots that this property backs up to are still zoned residential. It's only one of the lots that's zoned MRO, multiple residential and office district. So there's some issues with that as well.
So you're saying, Bill, that if they went in and fixed this side of the wall and cut off 2 foot, would it be legal then?
No, I think what Mr. McCoy's trying to say is even if we left it at 8 feet, it wouldn't pass engineering. Is that my understanding, Mr.
No, it may
McCoy?
not. I can't speak to that. That's something that the building department will want to see, though. We'll want to see documentation that the fence is structurally sound at that height. So once it exceeds the 6 feet, that's when engineering and or an engineer gets involved with it. So the building department issues those permits.
Let me
Yes,
ask.
if they were to cut off the top 2 feet, the only issue that we'd be dealing with is the way the fence is facing.
But I'm saying, they can come on this side and put another board and make it a double fence. I think Drew mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, that's true, but you know, they're not asking for that.
Now, Mr. suggested,
Yeah, John did. It was. Couldn't they do that, John?
Well, now that I look at the fence, I realize that they've put their pickets right up against each other. A shadow box fence usually has let's say if it's a 6-inch wide picket, you've got a 2-inch gap between it and the next picket, a wider gap, so that then the opposite side overlaps that. That allows airflow through the fence.
Mm-hmm.
No, but when Bill brought up that issue about the engineered fence, he's absolutely right, and I forgot all about that. The fact that it's over 6 feet, yeah, it needs to be engineered. This is more difficult than I expected.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? If not, I'm gonna open it to the public. Anyone, I think there's a lady a while ago. Would you like to speak now, please?
Ms. Wright, now's your opportunity to address the BZA.
Thank you. I think Mr. McCord kind of pointed out what I was going to say. I am residential R40, and I'm butting up to a residential R40 on the backside where the fence is. And so I feel like it needs to be residential, a residential fence. And Carmen has green bushes, trees that Bart Bagsby, when he bought the property 10 years ago and put his office there, he put green shrubbery back there. So Carmen cannot even see that fence. And then the property on the other side of Carmen is Patsy Clymer. She just sold, and it's going to be zoned MRO also. They'll be coming before the board pretty soon, probably. And he will be responsible of putting a barrier there between him and the residential property. So, you know, he can go in and put the green barrier or whatever, but I had green barrier there and they cut it all down. So now I'm looking at a fence. Yeah, it's ugly and I can live with it, but I just think we need to be consistent in a neighborhood. I know, yeah, maybe one day it's going to be commercial, but right now it's not, and I live here. So that's all I want to say.
Also on the
This is Vivian. Can I speak?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Thank you. The reason that the foot is on the fence is on my property and not on the property line exactly is we would have had to taken down way more trees. So I was trying to save some of the trees and some of the greenery by not taking all of it out. We've had to take down 19 trees because of disease. And so the yard looks really bare. I had 12 90-foot pine trees that were dying and had to come down. The support pieces that y'all are talking about, those posts, the big posts, were buried in 2 feet of concrete. The support pieces that you see are there because I stopped my guys from taking those down after I received the letter, which is what Jennifer asked me to do. There are 2 commercial buildings behind me now. Actually, Kathy Wright is the only resident that's still there. Jean Carmen and the house next to Jean Carmen has been sold to an engineering company, and they're moving offices in there. So the only house behind me that's residential is Kathy's. The part of the reason for the fence was when we took out some of the dead stuff, it left it wide open. Those bushes are the bushes that Jean Carmen had put in had gotten diseased. And so we've treated some of that, but they sit up and there was open area at the bottom of it. I have a 92-year-old mother. I have a husband who has Parkinson's. I have a 17-month-old grandson who will be playing in that backyard. The way the property slopes, we get Nashville pipe noise from the lakeshore side. And I was trying to kind of be protective. It was a safety reason that I went 8 feet, because 2 of those houses will now be empty on the weekends and at night. And I was trying to protect my family. I didn't know I had to have a permit. I didn't take out any of the barrier that belonged to Kathy Wright. All that I took out was on my property, was the stuff on my property. So the reason that it's not on the line is because I didn't want to take out more tree. The complaint from Wes Reed, who I talked to, was that it wasn't a brick fence. He doesn't like wooden fences. And if you'll read his letter, he says that he's unhappy that the city didn't come in and force the businesses to put in a brick fence behind my house instead of me putting in a wooden fence. So I told Kathy previously that I would be more than happy to put planks on her side along her fence line, so she had a completed her smooth side like the side that faces me. But because that fence is 350 feet long, I didn't realize that I had done it the wrong way, and but I would be more than happy to fix hers. The business, when I talked to Jean Carmen, they said don't worry about it. They didn't have a problem with it being that way. So I'm not trying to cause problem. I don't understand though why, if Jean Carmen put up the fence and the place next to him put up a fence, it could be 10 feet, not 8 feet, but because I put it up, it has to be 8 feet. If it wasn't backed onto commercial property, I'd understand that. But the fact that it's, I'm back into 2 businesses and Nashville Pike in that area is only getting more commercial, my concern was really a safety concern and a noise concern.
Thank you. We also have, if the last 3 of your phone number is 167, your line has been unmuted. 167. Okay. If the last 3 of your phone number is 796, your line has been unmuted. Okay. We have Richard and Rebecca Dempsey.
Dempsey? I believe they left too, Judge.
Richard and Rebecca Dempsey, your line has been unmuted. Okay. Mr. Chair, that is everyone that is called in as an attendee.
Okay.
Save for, yes.
Thank you, Judge. All righty, I'll close it to the public. Is there any other question from the board?
Yeah, this is Drew Schreiner. Did I hear the owner of the property with the fence in question state that there could be an agreement with at least the only residence that it backs up to, that she's willing to take it down to 6 feet for that part?
She's willing to put board on the other side, she said, I think. Is that right, ma'am? Are you still with us?
I'm here.
Did you say?
Josh, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? This is Jimmy Moore. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. The question.
Okay, I will be glad to do whatever I need to do behind Kathy to make her happy. What I was trying to say is I was going to landscape in front of the fence. We had to put a halt on that till we got the variance. It is a terribly long fence, and even as cheap as Drew said those planks are, when you do 350 feet, it kind of adds up. But I just want to keep the 8 foot behind the businesses. If Kathy wants it down, I'm more than happy.
But you're willing.
I think that this is Kathy Wright. I think that's what I said in my letter, that I would like for it to be according to codes behind me. I don't care what happens on up through there. Behind me, I would like for it to be 6 foot, structurally sound, and bushes wouldn't do me any good. Those bushes where Carmen has bushes there, it's been 15 years since they were put. So I'm going to be gone in 15 years, probably. All of us are probably, but anyways, but if it 6 foot and the finished side on my side, and we're good.
Well, are you still on there too, ma'am?
I'm still here.
Okay, she's saying she wants a 6 foot fence. So I guess you heard what she said.
I did, sir, and I'll be more than happy to take care of that. As long as I can keep the 8 foot under the other 2. The problem's going to be is if, she sells her house and I'm, stuck with. It'll be commercial because nobody's going to, there's not going to be a resident that will move in that property. Because every house from her, she's the only resident in that whole strip of houses all the way to Lakeshore Drive. Everything else is now commercial or for sale in zone commercial.
Is Mr. McCord, you still here?
What is the status?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, my question would be, Bill, if she made it legal and got like this lady wants and done everything, could we put this on hold and see she could do that before we took a vote on it? What would you say? What would you recommend on that? I mean, if she fixed it just like the zoning board, the city wants it, and the lady, is that something we could work with and just maybe put it on hold at the present, or what?
My position is that we have a code standard and we're expected to meet that code standard. I know that the board historically has use these venues to negotiate things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think in this case we really need to go that route. I think that there's an opportunity. The fence needs to be constructed per code, and there's an opportunity and there's a way to construct it per code, and that needs to be done. So, yes, it would reduce the magnitude of the variance if she did build it 6 feet and put the finished side on the opposite side from how it's constructed on that one lot, but it's still not compliant with code for the majority of the length of the property. So our position is that the fence does not comply with code. There was no permit granted, and it needs to be rectified.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is John Pruitt. May I speak?
Yeah, John.
So on the first two items we addressed tonight, I stubbornly dug my heels in and said I was going to follow the code. And here we are in a situation where I find myself just about to say, oh, let's not follow the code. I can't do that. I can't be that inconsistent. Got to follow the code. But this lady has invested a whole lot of money in this fence, so I have a real nutty idea for her to consider. Ma'am, why don't you deed 2 feet of your property to those commercial properties behind you, giving them the fence as well, and therefore they have an 8-foot fence on a commercial property with the pretty side facing away from them. And you get your 8-foot fence goal that you want, they get 2 feet of property, but you don't have to redo your whole fence line. And then you still need to address the section by Mrs. Wright's, cut that down to the right height and put the pickets on the other side. I know that sounds bizarre, and I don't know how much it costs to deed 2 feet of your property over to an adjacent property owner, but everything stays the same as it is that way.
Mr. Puryear?
Yeah.
Mr. President, just Drew Schreiner. I did that fairly recently. It's not much cost. An attorney would charge very little to a quick claim deed. I applaud your idea. I think it's a good solution if she was open to it.
That's the only thing. She's got to be open to it, though. Can you
Well,
hear what's going on, ma'am?
Yes, sir, I can. And you could take 6 of it and then I'd have less to mow, but that's totally fine with me. Take 2 feet. I'm totally fine with it.
But did you hear? You need to do.
Right. I'm gonna give the 2 feet to the two
Okay.
businesses and then fix Kathy's fence, take it down to 6 feet and make it up to codes. And I'm fine with that.
Now, I will interject and say you've got to we'll need to defer this item because you've got to find out if those two businesses will accept the 2 feet, because they're taking on the maintenance of a fence. So, we can't make a decision on their behalf.
That's
Cord?
fine.
Mr. Chairman, I also want to check with our engineering department and our code to find out whether a replat would be necessary to be able to accomplish that.
Let's put this on hold.
Well,
Getting
Mr.
quite
Moore, the applicant needs to request a deferral.
Ma'am, could you request a deferral on
Okay, I request a deferral.
this? Thank you. That wouldn't take long, did it?
No, sir.
All righty. And you'll you get all this done. And I mean, you need to talk to those people. And I think, is the other lady still on the line?
Is who?
Is the other lady that was objecting to
Kathy.
Kathy?
Yeah.
You still?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Would that work for you if we get that done?
Fixing the fence behind me is perfectly fine.
Okay, all right, that's what we need to know. She said she'd try to get all that done. So what we're gonna do is, she's made a motion to defer it, okay? So what do we need to do now, Bill? Do we need to make a motion?
Well, the applicant has requested it to defer.
Yes.
So you would I guess you could formally take a motion to accept her request.
Okay. Okay, we'll take that motion for her request.
Mr. Chair, you don't have to make a motion. She's made the request to defer. Just grant it.
All those in favor, you want to take a roll call, or what you want to do on this? You want to take a roll call, Bill?
That would be fine. That would work as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Puryear,
Sorry, had the mute button on. Yes.
Mr. Schreiner,
I would second.
No, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Gregory.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, it's a unanimous vote.
Thank you. So we defer this till next meetings. Any other business that comes before the board at this time? Anything else, Mr. McCord?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm sure you'll work along. You'll know by next meeting about this also, won't you?
We'll have to do a little investigating about what would, based on y'all's discussion and options tonight,
Yeah.
that were considered tonight, we will have to find out what other processes will be necessary, and we'll align those and report back to you at the next meeting, what will be needed to be done to address some of those things that y'all discussed tonight.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other business at this time? Josh, thank you, and everyone else that's participated tonight. It's went better than I thought it would. I think we've got everything across, and I just want to thank everybody, and I'll take a motion to adjourn. Drew made the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're done.